going to talk about today is more what you would get kind of the first day of training camp. So this would be basic, I'll call it concepts and plays that teams will use throughout the entire season. So this would be day one of training camp, day two of training camp. The coach is meeting with the offensive staff here. We're going to go over a little offensive action and break down the first set of plays they're going to install going into the rest of their offense and the rest of training camp. So these are plays that teams will run all season.
Basic passing game install for the first few days of training camp. All right. I'd like to let's get in here and look. This first slide that we are going to show we're not going to go too in depth with this, but this is just a general picture here. So this install, from my understanding, there's a bunch of different formations that have different route combinations and stuff. And this would be like an entire formation right here. This is the branch formation, I believe. Is that correct, Nick?
So you're close. It's a concept. So
branch concept.
Yeah. So what they'll do is when they install plays, they'll start very, very high level. They'll start at concepts, which is in this case is a branch concept, and we'll go into what that means in a little bit. And then they'll break it down into what I'll call sub concepts or plays underneath that concept. So a concept could be, in this case, it's a branch. So it's a certain passing play. It's a certain situational pass play. And then you have different plays and sub concepts underneath that to take advantage of certain defenses and maybe certain down and distances in the game. And in those plays, it's broken down into different offensive formations that use those plays. So you have your high level concept, your sub concepts or plays, and then you got your different offensive formations for each one of those plays.
Well, I say because our first example is a variation of this branch concept, let's dive right into that one, and maybe the first thing we can cover is what the branch concept would be.
Sure. So what each of these concepts is defined usually on a pass route or a pass route combination.
So we have here, just so you know, this is the branch bow that we have first.
Right. So in this case, the branch bow is a combination route. So you have a branch route combination and you have an arrow shortened to bow, just for easy lexicon and communicating in the huddle. So this combination is the branch bow. So here you see on the screen, you see the branch. We're going to start at the far left. You see the branch route. That's that wide receiver running 8 yards and then breaking to the sideline, while the Z receiver, the far right receiver, is running a vertical route. The job there, the branch concept is pretty simple. It is an out route, which is the Y receiver, running behind a deep receiver who's clearing out. He's making a lot of space on that sideline for that branch route, that out-breaking route to get open. So the bow combination is on the other side of the field. So a bow is called an arrow route, shortened to bow, is a quicker and very fast out-breaking route. We're looking about 5-6 yards. I think up here they say 4 to 6 yards. Yeah, exactly. And so you have the receiver, the X receiver right on top of that. He is running an in-breaking route to kind of clear up the space, to kind of clear up that short distance so that out-breaking arrow route or bow route can get open underneath.
So, Nick, one thing I notice here is the arrow route on both is just different receivers is red. Does that symbolize something in particular?
Yeah, so that is a hot route. What that means is if the quarterback at the line of scrimmage recognizes that the defense is blitzing more defenders and their protection can pick up, that's where he's going right away. And that's also to tell the receiver that he's hot, which means he doesn't necessarily run the full route combination. He's getting off the line of scrimmage and he's looking for the ball right away. You can see kind of how both actions are on both receivers there. There's an initial direction and then an action off of that. In this case, it's a bow route, so they're breaking out. If he's hot, if you recognize it's the blitz, he's looking for the ball running that initial direction first before breaking out. And that would be a really quick quarterback catches the snap or drops back and throws it to him right away. It's to get the ball out of his hands really, really, really quickly.
So anywhere along that 4 to 6 yard route, he could be receiving the football, but if he reaches the limit of that, he is now has the option to break towards the sideline.
Well, so if he's hot, he stops. Right, because if it's a hot route, he recognizes, and this is a lot of communication that goes at the line of scrimmage the quarterback will, a lot of times look at the receiver and he'll, do some kind of hand motion, or they'll just know just because they've worked together. He knows if he gets to that point and it's a blitz and he's hot, he stops because
Okay.
he needs to give a clear and easy target for the quarterback to get rid of the ball quickly.
Now,
So
on number one, there's one and two. Number one, the Z go route, it says outside release. What do you what both in both of these as well, the outside release routes are alert routes. So can we go over that
yeah,
nomenclature? What does that mean?
so outside release just is the angle that receiver's taking off the line of scrimmage. So he wants the play is set up for that guy to work to the outside. And again, he's a clear out. So his job is to take the defender with him and to open up space for that branch route behind him. Now they give him an alert here because there is a chance, even though the play is not designed for him, that he is going to be wide open. And the reason I say that is because a branch concept, and specifically a branch bow concept, is very, very common in pro football. So corners or safeties and other DBs that watch a lot of film see this formation, and because they've seen the film, they know that in this case, I think it's a 49er playbook, it is that, hey, a branch route is coming. So even though I've got this receiver right in front of me, I'm just going to sit on that branch route and try and cut in front of it and either break up the pass and make the interception. Now, if that defender does it, that means the receiver running the vertical, who's a clear route, he's going to be wide open. So they have this alert tag in here to tell that player, hey, even though you're running a clear out, there's a chance that the defender may outsmart himself here and you may find yourself wide open. So even though you're not the primary target, be alert, because if the defender outsmarts himself, you have a chance to make a big play.
Now that is very interesting, but something I want to touch on here. We talked about concepts and breaking it down smaller and smaller. So we have the overarching branch concept. Now we're combining branch with bow. So we have the branch bow concept, but then we break it down into these plays. And these plays, if we look here at number one, south, right, 3, jet, Y, branch, does that nonsense, or does all of that stuff mean something?
Yeah, so it obviously means something, right? A little rhetorical question there. So a play is structured always the same way. The first thing you're ever going to hear is the formation. The next thing you're going to hear is if there's any motions or shifts. Then the next thing is going to be the protection around the quarterback. So it's going to be for the offensive line and the quarterback. And then you're going to have the route combination behind it. So here's south, right. In 49er language, that's this formation. That's one tight end to the right, and you have the Z receiver to the right with the F and the X to the left bunched together. On the right side of the screen, you see another south right, but they call it clamp, south right clamp. That tells the outside receiver that you're going to be close to the Y instead of being spread out, and the tight end, the Y receiver, is now off the ball and backed up instead of being on the line of scrimmage. So all that language there in the formation, it changes basically from team to team. Every team uses essentially the same formations, but they all call it pretty much different things. And so that's one of the challenges when you go to a new team is they call, hey, you got to get used to the verbiage and how plays are called and things like that. Because you may have a formation here, they call it south right. You have another team may call it ace right or twins right or diamond left or whatever. And it's just some different verbiage. It's the exact same concept, exact same formation, but it's just called a different thing. And you'll even have some teams where they may have the same verbiage, but it means two different things. So, you may have south right may mean this formation for one team, but if you go to, let's say, Dallas, south right may be a completely different formation. So that's one of the challenges of getting in the playbook and learning these things is to understand and remember, hey, I'm with this team. It means this formation and this alignment.
Okay. Personally, that makes journeyman QBs, like for me particularly, like a Ryan Fitzpatrick or somebody like that. That makes it that much more impressive to me that he can travel to all these teams and get all of this information. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, and you're a great point there. And that's why a lot of backup quarterbacks are able to have really long careers. And you ever notice, right? It's always certain guys. You brought up journeymans, but it's, Andy Dalton, Fitzpatrick's done it. There's a lot of guys that play and they play a long time and they're always backups. And
Like
well,
Castles or
exactly. And it's, some fans wonder, well, how does this guy still play and he never plays? Well, the reason is because he's smart enough and coaches know he's smart enough and with it enough to handle formations and concepts changing from team to team and pick up on it very quickly. And that's so valuable in a backup because you just want a guy, if you have a backup, who can go in there and run your offense and not just totally screw it up. So that's why those guys are so valuable.
So let's break this down a little bit further. So we got the south right, which is the formation, south right or south right clamp. And now we're getting in three jet Y. Is that a nomenclature in itself, or do we break that down even further?
So it's three jet. So that three is a direction of the protection. So this play is actually a little truncated. It's a little cut off. So what really the play will look like would be like south right 303 Y branch bow. And the reason they only say three here is because that's the direction of the protection. So there's always going to be a direction of a protection, even if it's man on man. For more information about protections, check out our video where we talk about 3-4 versus 4-3 defenses. I won't go too much into it here. But the big thing here is that whatever the protection is called, so a protection is going to be pretty simple. It's going to be a number like 100, 200, 300, or 400. So 100 may be man on man, 200 may be slide, and 300 may be a fan out, and 400 may be a fan in. So in this case, let's say it's a man on man, it's a 100. So they're calling 103. That means the running back is checking to the left because all the offensive linemen are man on man, like you see here. So 103 jet would be the call here. So 100 would say, hey, offensive lineman, man on man. The three is saying, hey, running back, you're checking to the left, you're helping to the left. And the jet, in combination with the rest of the protection, is sort of an indicator where the quarterback is going to be. It'll tell you the drop. So a jet under center would be a 5-step drop, for example. A jet under gun may be a 1-step drop because he's already a shotgun. He's already back a number of yards at the snap.
Okay, that all makes sense. And then obviously, Y, what would the Y be? Is the Y saying that the Y is the branch route?
Yeah, so what it is, so it's Y branch bow. So Y branch bow is the way to look at it. So I hit on a little bit earlier, but receivers have nomenclature XYZ. And this goes back from the Paul Brown days of the 1950s, Sid Gilman days, the 1960s of modern offensive football. And basically what that is the X receiver is always going to be on the left. The Z receiver is always going to be on the right. And the Y receiver is in between them. So it goes, X, Y, X, Z, Y. So what this is saying is that the Y receiver, which in this case is the tight end, it's also the slot receiver sometimes, is running the branch route. And so Y branch. And that means, hey, in this formation, south right, the Y receiver is on the right. So the branch combination is going to be the Y receiver, receiver running the branch with the Z receiver clearing out. And then the bow concept obviously has to go the opposite. So that's going to be the F or the slot running the bow concept with the X receiver running the 12-yard in breaking route in front of it.
And then this other play is kind of just flipped. We see that the F receiver is running the branch route. And like you said, if F is on the one side, the bow is going to be on the other side. So you have the Y receiver running the bow or arrow route.
Exactly. And you'll also notice the protection is now 2-jet. And which direction is the running back going the opposite direction. So it's just like you said, it's just a flip, a little change in the formation, but a change in the direction of the play as well.
Now this was very interesting, but I would say, and you may agree, this is a relatively simple play call. They kind of get more complex than this. Are you ready to move on to something a little bit more complex?
Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next one.
So up next, we have our branch buffalo concept. So let's break down this nomenclature, but first let's break down the concept. What is the branch buffalo concept?
So the branch is the exact same concept before. It's the outbreaking route with the clear out in front of it. So you can see on the left and for the play on the left, the branch is on the left, and the play on the right, the branch is on the right. And you still see the same clear out, the vertical on the sideline with the branch behind it. The buffalo concept is just a different concept. And the reason plays get this name is just, for example, the Buffalo Bills may have ran this play for 20 years in the 80s or something like that. And that's what they call it, gotcha. Right? You'll see plays being called Dallas, or you'll see plays being called Pittsburgh or something, just because, the Cowboys may have ran that play 1,000 times in the 70s and coaches just started calling it that. That's just the vernacular just comes out of nowhere. There's no real rhyme or reason for it. Usually it's just what sticks. Right. These are football coaches. They're far from the most creative people in the world. So whatever gets used just kind of sticks, and that's what they roll with. So the Buffalo concept, to get back to the play, is essentially designed to kind of be an option route for that receiver. And it's designed to work on both a 1 safety and 2 safety look. And it's an option between the two. And you can kind of see on the screen there. So if it's a 2 safety look, even though you can't see the defense, you notice how the route, and you see this in the dash line, is more straight up the field. That's because if you have 2 safeties, you have 1 on each hash. So you want to stay, if you're the inside receiver, vertical between the safeties when you run this Buffalo route. If there's 1 safety in the middle, you want to run more wider to stay across that safety, to kind of get in front of him, to go where the open space is. So that's kind of the concept, right? Always go to the open space. And then the other side of the Buffalo concept is you see the slant underneath it. So really the way it works is you're looking for the Buffalo first, but if the defense, if they're playing a zone and they drop really deep to cut it off, you have that slant working behind it.
Now,
you see that there on the right, that slant kind of working behind it?
Yes, the Z receiver is running the slant. Now
exactly.
This F receiver right here on both plays, really, the pick curl route. Why is it split into 2 different routes? It looks like. Is this just another option, I guess?
Are you talking about the dash line or?
Yes, the dash line.
So it depends on the coverage, right? So you see how the hard line there, it kind of has those 2 little equal signs, or that equal sign there, and that's kind of setting a pick. So if it's man coverage, he's working right to the angle of where he thinks the defender covering the Z is going to run. So he's going to try and get in his way to open up that slant route. If it's not man, or the defense is really backed off, he works more vertical up the field. So think of it the same thing as the branch, right? If it's zone coverage, he's working straight up the field to clear out for the slant behind him. If it's man, he's working more towards the defender who's covering the slant.
Okay, that's very interesting. Now that we get a good idea of what we're working with concept-wise, this one's one of my favorites. I like this nomenclature here. Let's break this down. So the play call is trips right, nasty, H left out, 2 scat, X branch, Buffalo. I like the trips right, nasty. Nasty sounds cool to me. So what does all this mean?
So trips right is just what San Francisco calls a formation when you have the Y receiver is the tight end, the Z receiver is on the right, and your F receiver or your number 4 receiver is also on the right. There's 3 guys there, trips, triple, right. So it's pretty simple there. Nasty H left out. So this is when I talked about before, how after the formation, they're always going to show like a motion or a shift. So nasty motion is just what it's called when the running back goes in motion. So here in this case, the running back's going to go in motion like he's going up to the line of scrimmage and then work to the sideline slowly. Couldn't tell you why it's called a nasty motion. It just is.
It's because the play is going to be nasty.
Yeah. So I told you these coaches are really creative types. They're not exactly really, really articulate, deep thinkers with some of the jargon here. But the left out part is just to say, hey, or the out part. So the H nasty left. Nasty is the motion where he walks to the line of scrimmage. He's going left, and out just says, hey, go all the way to the outside. You can do nasty motion where you stop at different points along the way. So that out tag just says, hey, go all the way to the sideline. Because remember, he's clearing out for the branch route. That's his job. So you have trips right, nasty, H left out. So that's the motion. 2 scat, we already talked about. Protections to the right, and that's the depth of the quarterback's drop. And then you have X branch Buffalo. So that's, again, the combination behind it.
Okay, and as we already realized, the X receiver is going to be the branch route, and then on the other side, we will have the Buffalo route, the route combination. And on this other play, Y is the branch route, and on the opposite side of the field will be the Buffalo combination.
Yeah, so a couple things I want to hit on here real quick is this obviously sounds like a lot of jargon, and it, maybe it's confusing for a lot of listeners trying to look, how do the players keep up with this? And the answer is a lot of them screw it up. It's one of those things. It's not really talked about too much because it's not a great talking point in the football analysis world. But I would wager to bet that 1 out of every 10 plays, maybe even more, is just a total bust, either on the offense or the defense. Someone screws up. You have some receivers who think I'm the X here or I'm the Z here. They get them swamped and they run the wrong route. And usually what happens, you don't really see this too much, is the quarterback will see it. And sometimes when you see a quarterback really quickly go to a check down, that a lot of times is because someone screwed up. Either the quarterback screwed up, he misread the play or didn't read it right, or the receiver screwed up. He looks up, he's expecting to see a branch route, and instead he sees a Buffalo from that guy. He's like, all right, this is totally screwed up. Let me get the ball out of my hands, get it to the check down, and move on with my life.
That explains what happened in the Buffalo-Jacksonville game last week. everyone must have screwed up every play.
You'd be really surprised that you see it sometimes out of young quarterbacks when they try and, because a lot of times with younger quarterbacks, the coaches will simplify the game plan and they'll really condense it. So a lot of times the quarterbacks will look, all right, number one's not there, number two's not there, and they'll get kind of worried and they'll quickly check it down, or they'll misread it, or even worse, they're not sure. So a lot of defense will try and disguise their coverages. So you see the 2 safety and 1 safety look. Well, a lot of times what defenses will do is they'll line up in 1 safety and then they'll drop the safety back at the snap. So it'll shift to a 2 safety look or something like that, or vice versa. They'll line up with 2 safeties and bring 1 up at the snap like that. And that confuses the heck out of quarterbacks sometimes. And when they see that, they'll freak out. They'll hit the check down just to move on with their lives and get on to the next play.
Well, that is very interesting, and I'm liking this. So we got a couple more combinations. But we should move away from the branch. We've touched on branch too much. All right, our next combination we have up: double scout spread sneak. What are your thoughts on this play? How does this one strike your fancy?
So this one is, again, there's 2 things I want to hit on first, I guess, is, again, it's a trips right. So it's the same formation as the other play. But the difference here is obviously everything else in the play. But I'm going to start with the fact that it's 3 jet scout, 3 jet. So again, it's a different kind of protection, right? It's a different kind of concept. It tells the offensive line where the quarterback's going to be, what direction to go. So you see the running back, there's no motion this time. On the previous play, there was motion. So there's no call to motion there. It's just the running back is just checking and then sneaking out of the back. You see it in the play call. But the big thing here is double scout. So this double scout concept is a double fade. So what this is designed to do is have both receivers run up the sidelines and outside release. This is a really good play against cover 2. I won't go into too much what a cover 2 is. The big concept is that there's 2 big holes in a cover 2, up the sidelines and up the middle. So what the quarterback is looking here is at the snap, he kind of sees what option he prefers, and he's looking right there at these 2 fade routes, these 2 double scout routes really, really quick. If it's more man coverage, he's definitely throwing more of the back shoulder stop route. If it's a zone cover 2, which means the corners are going to stay closer to the line of scrimmage, he's going to try and hit this fade. Again, it's a great route in that look if he has a receiver who can make a play down the sideline and the quarterback has a great arm. The secondary option here, and this is why it's such a good play, is that a lot of teams in this situation, if you have 2 safeties deep and they kind of have to cover deep and work out to these fades, right? So you got 2 fades and you got 2 safeties, they got to run out there to cover. That opens up the middle for deep passes. So that middle linebacker has to get depth. He's got to get back and get back fast. Teams understand that, so they run this Y route underneath here. You see, they call this the spread sneak route here. So you have the combination, you have this F route, run over the middle, and then work out. And the quarterback, the moment he goes over the middle, is looking for him to turn around and get him the ball pretty quickly to let him run, catch it in stride to try and get as much yards as possible out of this play. So this is kind of one of those really really good plays and gives the quarterback a lot of options. He either has the cover 2, the 2 scout receiver, the 2 scout routes, the 2 fade routes on the sideline right away. He has the spread route coming short underneath, and he also has the dig route, right? That's the deep route that the middle linebacker's got to get depth on in case the middle linebacker really screws the pooch and stays close to the line of scrimmage. He has that route over the top. More than likely, it's going to be covered. So he's going to probably hit that spread short route and let him run after the catch if the fades aren't open.
So it just seems basically you're either going to hit your double scouts or you're going to sneak the spread route in there.
Yeah, so exactly. And again, you have the dig route, which is that 12, I guess they call it a basic cross in 49er lexicon. I call it a dig. They call it a basic. That's just, again, a lot of times they'll have in the place, they'll have things in there to tell the quarterback, hey, don't let the defense off the hook. If that middle linebacker screws the pooch in a 2 safety look and he doesn't get depth, throw it over his head for a big play. And that's exactly what you're seeing there. And sometimes you'll get those chances. A lot of times you won't, especially if you play a good defense. So you're forced to hit this, this spread route, this slot route here. But again, it's still a good play because if everybody's getting depth and you throw a good ball to this receiver, he's got a lot of room to run after the catch and make a pretty good yardage.
Now, back in my day when I played Madden, my optimal cover 2 beater would be hitting Dennis Pitta on the seam. That's typically the play I would like to run. So that's just, for anyone's wondering. But
So yeah, this is a great point. So in Madden, obviously that middle linebacker, whoever's got to cover that seam, that middle area, he's constrained by the game. In real life, that's why that middle linebacker has to fly. because that's where teams are looking, to try and get something quick and easy. So that's why that middle linebacker's got to fly and bail and get depth. Otherwise, that seam, like you said, is wide open.
Now, on this other side, there's a little bit, and this we're gonna get crazy, okay? I'm gonna try to break this one down. Let's see how well I've been paying attention, okay? So this one is a little crazy, so maybe I'll get it right, maybe I'm not. But so we have the play call would be fly, bunch, right, nasty, 3-jet, double scout, F spread, sneak. So I've been paying attention to what you've been saying. So I have fly, bunch, right. So I'm thinking that's just kind of what they call this bunch right with formation here on the right is a fly bunch right.
Yep, that's a fly bunch package, and it's to the right. So the fly bunch right, so the bunch is to the right. Yep.
Now we have my favorite nasty motion. The Y receiver is going to motion into that bunch. We're good so far?
Yep, you're right on the money.
3-jet is our protection.
Mm-hmm.
So we got 3-jet. Then we've got our double scout routes. And then we have the spread sneak. With the Y that's nasty motioning over is going to hit the linebacker tester, we'll call it. The basic.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And the one thing that's a little different here about this play is you'll notice that the scout route here looks more like an out route, and that's just because the receivers are closer to the line of scrimmage. Again, this is a route combination designed to test the sidelines down the field primarily. So even though the receivers are closer together, they still want to work to the sideline. That's where the quarterback's looking to go with the football.
Now, one quick question I have here.
Yep.
When we look at the X and Y receiver here, when the motion happens, are they trading spots on the line of scrimmage?
Correct. So the X receiver starts off the football. The Y receiver starts on the football. The nasty motion is having him back up and motion across the field, because you have to have a certain number of players on the line of scrimmage. Number one, and number two, your offensive linemen always have to be covered up, which means that an eligible receiver, has to be on the line of scrimmage, between the line of scrimmage and between the sideline and the line of scrimmage. So right here, that at first it's that Y receiver, right? He's on the line of scrimmage covering up that tackle. Well, the moment he backs up to do a nasty motion, that X receiver has to step up. Otherwise, that's an illegal formation. That's a 5-yard penalty.
Interesting. So can the X receiver step up immediately, or does he have to wait for the motion to stop?
So he can step up immediately, but he has to be completely set, because you can't have two players in motion at the time of the snap. You can have one player in motion, which is what the nasty is, as he's working across in motion. I don't think he's going to get set there, because if he was going to get set, you'd see another circle there where he ends up. He's nastying across, which means he doesn't get set. So at the snap, he's still working laterally before he works up the field to run his route. But that X receiver, you see that circle, right? That means he has to be set immediately after the motion begins, because you can't have two guys in motion at the snap. That's another 5-yard penalty.
All right. Now, I think this was a great looking play. I kind of like it. I like it's a good cover 2 beater is what it seems like. But let's move on to our last play that we have set up for today, the skid option.
So this is a great play that every team in the NFL runs some variant of. And I'm going to get hit right into the pass combination, because I'm a big fan of this. So you see skid, right? Skid is skinny post. So that means when you say skinny post, a post route, you're normally working, 7 yards and then to the goal post. That's why they call it a post. This one's skinnier. So instead of working 7 yards to the goal post, you're more working 7 yards and to the upright. You're keeping, instead of going really wide with the post, you're keeping it narrow. So you're working more up the field. So this is 100% on the quarterback to read this. So you sit here and see the two skids, the two skinny posts. If there's a one safety, which means the single safety in the middle of the field, they want to go to one of these skinny posts, obviously, because if the safety's in the middle of the field, that area is wide open where that skinny post is going. Now, if there's two safeties, they're obviously going to be lined up exactly where those skinny posts are going. But remember what we talked about, if there's two safeties and they're split in the middle of the field, what does that middle linebacker have to do? Fly. Got to get depth. So what does that open up? That Y option route right over the middle of the field, right over the football. There is nothing more infuriating to a fan. I've seen this a lot of times where it's 3rd and 5, 3rd and 8, whatever, down in distance, and the defense runs a cover 2, and a team runs some variant of the skid Y option where the middle linebacker has to fly because they've got 2 deep safeties, and then the quarterback takes the snap after 2 seconds. He just throws the ball 5 yards in front of him, it seems like, right over his face to a wide open wide receiver, usually a tight end, who gets 12 yards and a first down. You see this all the time. You ever wonder why someone's wide open over the football? It's usually because of a concept like this where they're running 2 deep safeties and that middle linebacker has to fly. So this short little option route over the middle is wide open. It happens all the time. Frustrates the living heck out of me, especially when it's against my team, because it's like, come on, guys, don't make it this easy. Try and make it harder for the offense.
All right. Now, one thing I want to touch on here. I'm trying to read these names, trying to get all of this figured out. But on number 1, it says strong right book 3-jet skid Y option. We got the skid Y option. We know the 3-jet is the protection. We know strong right is the play because they have more people on the right side of the field, the strong side of the field versus the weak side of the field. But the book, I was thinking maybe it was a motion, because there is a motion on number 2, but maybe that's Y left.
Yep, that's Y left. So
Y left is the motion. So what's book?
So book is a formation. It's just what they call it, where you have the fullback it's not an I formation. So traditional I, you obviously have the quarterback and the fullback and the halfback lined up in a vertical line behind center. The I looks like an I. That's why they call it I formation. A book, the way the 49ers call it, is when the fullback is off center behind one of the guards. Gotcha. So here you have strong right. So the strong tells you where the tight end's going to be. And then you have book, which tells you that the fullback is off centered.
Okay. That makes sense.
I'm sorry, I misspoke there. So the strong right tells you where the fullback is going to be. So it's strong right. The fullback is on the right. If it's weak right, that means the fullback is on the left. So it's kind of a little weird to say. You think it would be strong right or strong left, but usually they don't try and they try and focus on keeping the directions fairly simple and just people line up based on the verbiage of the call. So strong right means fullback and tight end are on the same side here on the right. Weak right means the tight end's by himself on the right, the fullback's on the left. No, okay. That's probably really confusing. That's just how that's how the 49ers call it. Go to any other team, they may call it something completely different.
All right. Any last word? Do you want to talk about skid option?
Yeah, so just one little thing here. You see those hashtags for all you youngins out there next to those receivers. So that's telling them these receivers line up inside the numbers. So normally receivers line up a little outside the numbers, wide receivers. Because it's a skinny option, they don't want to get too wide, because if you get too wide, that means it takes you a long time to work skinnier up the field. So they want these guys to be closer to the where the quarterback is at the snap. So inside the numbers, work out a little bit. So that gives them plenty of space to cut in for those skinny posts, those skid routes.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. I think that was really good. What do you think about doing like a defensive playbook install one of these days?
Yeah, I think that would be really good. I think getting into the coverages and things like that would be big. And, again, this sounds like a lot of, verbiage and a lot of lexicon, a lot of strategy and stuff that goes into it. And it obviously is a good bit. But the important thing to understand here is that this is all essentially day one stuff. None of this is really, really hard or complex. We all have jobs. We all have different jargon and lexicon and processes we have to follow at work, at the office, and things like that. This is the exact same thing for football players. So even though it sounds like really, really confusing and really strange and kind of what the heck are they have to think of all this stuff, they have to remember all this. The reality is this is beating your head day one all of the time. It becomes just a second language. You become fluent in it. It's players that can't pick up on it get cut pretty quickly. Like this is just a really normal day-to-day operation stuff, learning these kind of funky little jargons and sets and verbiage that relate to the plays and the schemes every week.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, though, Nick. One way we could look at it is, so obviously strong right book, weak right book, those are the play calls, okay? And everybody probably needs to know what the formation is going to be. But if you're offensive lineman You don't really need to know skid Y option or Y left. You just need to know the 3-jet protection, correct?
Yeah. So normally what will happen is, no huddle situation. You made a great point. So you'll see the quarterback will tell the receivers, he'll have a hand motion. So that's say skid Y option is this. So he'll look to the receivers and say, hey, skid Y option, skid Y option. So everyone knows what the play is. And then he'll go up to line of scrimmage and go 3-jet, 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 3-jet. Right. And then back up because there's no huddle trying to be quick. So he'll only tell the offensive lineman what they need to know and then signal to the receivers and the running backs what the rest of the play is.
So
that's
there's parts. You don't necessarily need to remember all of the play call. You just need to know your part.
That's a big part of it. It helps to learn the rest of it, to be honest, because you kind of get a high level view and a picture of it. But really to the basic fundamentals, no, you just need to know your specific play.
Okay.
Or your part in the play.
And I'm also, my brain's working thinking, I think this is really good. Maybe we'll work on running install one of these weeks. Some option plays, stuff like that. I think that would be very interesting to break down as well.